Holy wow. I'm not even gonna dare begin this massive analysis until I'm 100% certain that I've given you enough time to watch the finale. Believe me when I say that I feel so bad for the finale being leaked before the official air date. But before we truly dive headfirst into this analysis, we're gonna need some help. Let me introduce to all of you, ILoveKimPossibleALot.
Hi, I'm ILoveKimPossibleALot, and I'm here, and we're gonna talk about Amphibia. Yeah!
As usual, it is a pleasure to have you on board with us once more. And I guess if there's nothing else to stop us from breaking down this masterpiece of a finale, let's roll that intro. Well, you may have thought that the warning was a bluff, but boy was it true. This is your last chance before we truly begin the analysis of the finale. Hold on to your thinking caps. Once again, much like the Season 2 finale, it begins with a flashback leading up to the events of the trio being transported into Amphibia dimension. Only this time we're finally shown the backstory behind Marcy and what influenced her to even consider getting the Calamity Box as a sort of birthday gift for Anne. Starting off with her receiving a barrage of messages from Sasha reminding her of Anne's birthday. But before she leaves the library, she notices a librarian, at least from the looks of it, accidentally drops an interesting book. A book including a Gravity Falls reference of Bill Cipher, and none other than the Calamity Box itself, with the title of the book being called Dr. P's Extraordinary Guide to Magic and Mystery. Now, if my assumptions are correct, Dr. P could be anyone on planet Earth, but could it be by any chance from someone within another dimension?
For all we know, it's more than possible for the book to have originated from a planter, given how it is mentioned in Season 1 that they had family ancestry to scientists. In fact, there have been multiple hints throughout the show, making us, the viewers, realize just how significant the planter heritage has impacted the lives of others. In addition to that, Marcy also declares how farmers are extraordinarily unappreciated, as well as mentions how ancient the very home of the planters is.
Moving along with the episode, it continues with Marcy having to head back home instead of meeting up with the girls for Anne's birthday, which was continuity at its finest. Because as we know, in the previous finale, Marcy had never shown up on time. Instead, it's revealed that the reasoning behind that was due to her parents needing to talk to her immediately. And whatever it was, it makes Marcy become upset and saddened, something that will without a doubt be expounded on later on in the video. For right now, all we know is that this soon coincidentally gets Marcy to stop by to where the Calamity Box is located, as if it was destiny, leading up to the events of today just several months later.
The gang all arrived to the Newtopia gates, where Sasha and Grime have their hood up in order for the king and the soldiers to not be alarmed. They nearly are successful in giving the Calamity Box to King Andrias, until Sasha and Grime have other plans in mind. And just like how she's been showing off her true self for the past few episodes, Sasha once again takes control and brushes off her terrible deeds as if it's nothing. You know, despite her having to overthrow an entire hierarchy, continue to try to manipulate her friends even after the supposed time she's apologized, and much more.
This, of course, causes Anne and Sasha to fight with one another once again, leading up to Sasha attempting to use the magic box to forcefully transport Anne back to Earth, only it happening to no avail due to her having no knowledge on how to activate the Calamity Box. Surprisingly, it wasn't because Anne's gem wasn't fully charged, as you'll witness later on in the episode as well. The crew are all about to be sent to the dungeon until Anne hits one of the guards from her in filled rage, followed by General Yunnan taking down the rest of the Toads. The group then proceed to go inside of an abandoned building of Newtopia in order to uplift their spirits and plan an escape for King Andrias. Something that shockingly was successful due to Hopadiah's terrific performance in theater acting, as shown earlier in this season during the Planters' first trip. And of course, they couldn't sneak past all of the other guards outside, so they asked Polly, Yunnan, and Frobo to cause massive distractions while Anne and Sprig go to reclose the royal gates, giving us the long-awaited rematch between Anne and Sasha. It was all building up to this very moment, but something was a bit off with the delivery. About to help Grime presents Sasha with another sword as a gift, only for her to look back at her reflection in disappointment, realizing the type of person she has become. Unlike Anne, who this season realizes the growth in her character and how much better of a person she has developed into. Just before Sasha and Grime make their way to fight Anne and Sprig, they discover the unthinkable.
Turns out, while in the middle of Sasha and Grime's redecorating, they uncovered an old portrait depicting King Andrias taking control of the Calamity Box while being surrounded by nothing but destruction, and chaos. But in detail, the creatures on the bottom left seem to be the same evolved moss men experienced from inside of King Andrias' secret bunker from underneath Marcy's room in the tower. While on the right side, it seems to be the same floating squid-like organisms also found underneath the castle during Anne and the gang's sleepover. Right above it all, it wouldn't be too surprising if something like alien spacecrafts is what's being illustrated, due to the secret advanced technology Amphibia secretly has possessed this whole time. Could it be originally 3 people used to charge the box itself? Or is this of Sasha and Marcy?
After discovering that behemoth of a plot twist within King Andrias' very own throne room, Sasha isn't fighting Anne for the sake of trying to rule Amphibia, but instead in order to warn Anne of Andrias' true colors. Roll credits. But understandably so, Anne ignores Sasha's warnings and proceeds on to closing the gate after beating Sasha in an intense fight. With one of her ways of defeating Sasha is by using the same technique she used on her, nearly getting her to lose the battle the first time they fought. And don't think for a second that I forgot about Sprig's encounter against Grime, who manages to stand a chance, using his swift maneuvers, his trusty slingshot, and unintended final blow to the face. I guess Grime still didn't learn his original lesson in underestimating frogs despite their smaller size and weaker bodily structures. Towards the end of the two's quarrel, Anne manages to grab a hold of the gate's handle and traps the rest of the Toad army from entering inside of the kingdom. Except one dude, but he immediately gets wrecked.
All in all, Grime and Sasha are immediately tied up while King Andrias gets possession of the Calamity Box. And then things get worse, explaining that Newtopia used to be truly great until people he used to trust betrayed him and took the box for themselves. Which goes back to when King Andrias expresses to Marcy how when Anne left Marcy in order to stay with the planters for a while longer, he says,
"Always sad to see someone go, isn't it?"
And quite honestly, I think he might have left out some important details on why exactly those friends left him.
Clearly the flashback looks to be including the likes of Sprig's mother for all we know, or even a planter ancestor older than that. Because even Marcy said earlier this season that Sprig's amphibian skin color is quite rare, and I feel as if there was a reason behind why the planters have such an interesting background. Another thing to mention is that if you were to look closely, you can also notice a gem-like necklace she's wearing. Not a gem from the music box, but possibly one of the gems missing from out of one of the artifacts in the Second Temple Guide's Bazaar tent. I just can't imagine this being purposely drawn out and it not actually having any meaning behind it. As for why the Calamity Box was taken, it's believable that whoever took it knew not to let King Andrias have control over it, as he would use and abuse its power for the destruction of other worlds. Which brings us back to the page inside of the royal book, clearly displaying the potential of its power, giving others the ability to travel to other worlds, even beyond Amphibia and planet Earth. Betcha the sudden betrayals Andrias was facing was due to his sudden turn in behavior and true intentions behind his rulings, slowly becoming more and more wicked in his thinking as he gained power over time from his growing defense team, allies, and much more. So yeah, I guess that would explain the ripped portrait of the three beautifully, given how this was possibly Andrias' doing, and that these were the original 3 prophesied to work together until one day they grew apart.
And if anything, King Andrias was right to say that his people's days of conquering was long forgotten, and no one seems to know what in the world is happening. It's shocking to the point that even Sasha and Grime are perplexed by Andrias' malevolent actions. And he doesn't think twice about blowing up the Toad Towers. There were people in those, right? There were people toads in there. And Anne and the Marcy Rue crew here are all about to start an onslaught against Andrias and his evil Frobo army. This is until something even more dreadful is revealed. As it turns out, Marcy was not only responsible for sending all 3 of them to Amphibia due to her giving them the idea to take it from out of the thrift store, but she went even one step further. Apparently, Andrias' proposition to Marcy was to allow all 3 of them to travel with him to different worlds in order to have adventures until the end of time. Also that Marcy doesn't suffer the pain of being alone. It's revealed that the reason why Marcy rushes out of her home in tears is because of her parents giving her the news of her moving out of state away from her friends, which would be heartbreaking to happen, especially knowing just how long her friends had lasted up to that point. But she went just a little bit too far, trusting a giant salamander man from another dimension who plays Flipwort. But the show displays that there isn't a single person who doesn't suffer from a particular flaw. And not even Marcy, the genius gamer girl, is perfect.
So, all frogs, toads, and humans finally settle their past squabbles with one another and all help to defeat Andrias' robot army, and that's including General Yunnan. Frobo even restrains the king for quite some time before he literally attempts to murder Polly. Twice! Do I need to remind you that Polly is a literal tadpole? She is a friggin' baby, and that's not to mention how easily he crushes Frobo for being a quote-unquote defect. The second time Polly escapes the likes of Andrias is from her developing her legs, because just as Marcy had explained in episode 6 of this season,
I'd say those legs should be coming in about 2 months, give or take. Can I get that in writing?
meaning that Anne and the two have probably been on Amphibia for approximately half a year. But back onto Polly's legs, in the words of Sprig, this is weird. I mean, it's honestly gonna take some adjusting to, but I can't wait to see what mischief she'll get into now that she can move much faster now. So much faster to the point where she manages to grab a hold of the Calamity Box and momentarily stop Andrias' Castle of Doom. That is, until Andrias pulls a fast one and uses Sprig as leverage, something that I, for one, didn't believe was for nothing. Now obviously, he could have chosen specifically Sprig due to his age and how much more willing everyone will be listening to Andrias if he's used as an incentive. But I personally believe it was because Sprig could have reminded him of his long-lost friend depicted within both his old portrait and his flashback. Or, you know, he's got a history with the Planters and it's both revenge and a terrible memory for him. Things take a dark turn when Andrias actually does release Sprig from out of the palm of his hand, letting him plummet to his death. This tears Anne apart, showing us glimpses of their past memories with each other, one of them being a clip from the outro of season 1. And so, with Anne still thankfully possessing some of the mystical powers from her gem, she turns Super Saiyan Blue for the very first time. She even does the stance, guys, like, come on, this reference was spot on. That's not to mention the Super Saiyan Blue haircut Sprig had gotten in episode 7 of this season.
All thanks to Marcy taking a leap of faith, she's able to save Spring before he completes his fall with the help of Joe Sparrow, while Anne goes full metal on Andrias and his robots. As Andrias is appalled by how she's still somehow connected to the stone, meaning that he purposely wants Marcy and the gang to charge to the stones, not only to power his castle to conquer worlds once more, but in order to clearly ensure that the three of them won't get a hold of the gem's ancient powers, which makes his line from the episode The First Temple extremely eye-opening.
The prophecy is being undone as we speak, my lord.
Purposely undoing what was prophesied to take down the enemy, except this enemy prophesied to be taken down by 3 burning stars could have been the very creatures Andrias is siding with. It's once again probable for the 3 original users of the music box to have been Andrias and his 2 loyal friends, until, just as the prophecy warns, should they fight or embrace, their choice will determine all. And then years later down the line, knowing that the prophecy could repeat itself once more, he plans to make certain that the 3 don't figure out what powers they possess and instead take it from them without notice.
Anyways, after Anne's massive butt whooping that she places on Andrias is finished, she soon passes out from her not totally mastering Ultra Instinct. But on a serious note, cause it gets more serious, Marcy takes the time to swiftly grab the box and use it to allow Anne and the Planters to escape while Sasha and Grime hold him off a bit, causing Andrias to suddenly impale Marcy with his mystical sword. Rather frightening to watch, quite honestly. But nah, don't worry, she's just gonna be experimented on in Andrias' lab as shown within what I believe is a sneak peek of the season 3 introduction. And though I won't be dissecting that in this video, expect a following video analyzing it for sure. The Planters, including the head of Frobo, are sent to Earth in the middle of California traffic, with the story of part 2 coming to an end, and with many questions waiting to be explored. One, for example, being, will Frobo having to have been brought to Earth end up being a helpful guide in figuring out whether or not the technology seen on Amphibia actually was technology derived from Earth? And will someone from Earth recognize Frobo as being an invention of theirs, given the whole Dr. P theory said earlier in this video, and or how the person who brought the box to Earth more than likely had to do the sacrificial deed in not being able to travel back home? The next season is definitely something worth anticipating, as there is so much to happen now that we know who the true villains of the show are, and that we have all parts of Amphibia having the potential of working together. And in speaking of working together, thank you ILoveKimPossibleALot for once again joining us in a video. Don't just give this video a like, audience, but please show her some support on her YouTube channel by subscribing.
So if you made it through the whole video, congrats. If you don't know me again, I'm ILoveKimPossibleALot. I talk about cartoons on the internet, and sometimes people care, but usually not really. Please like, comment, subscribe, turn your notifications on. Please, oh god, turn the notifications on. And check out some of my videos if you're bored. Which, if you're on YouTube, you're probably bored a lot already.
And well, all's well that ends well. This has been a ginormous video. Sorry it took so long to produce. There was just so much to include in our analysis, we had to make certain of not leaving a single stone unturned. Am I right? But without further ado, go ahead and like this video. Check out ILoveKimPossibleALot for some more content. And I will see you lovely people in the next one. Peace!